The Denison Forum podcast exists to discuss timely news with biblical insight and practical applications. And right now, there is nothing more timely than the upcoming election. That's why on August 1st, we're launching our new series called Politics Discerned Differently. Join us in our 8-week series as we discuss all things election 2024. We'll discuss topics like separation of church and state, how to be civil with uncivil people, election fairness, and even answering the questions like, is America a Christian nation? If you're not already following the Denison Forum podcast, do that now so you don't miss this upcoming series starting August 1st. Thank you for joining us.
Greetings. It's Monday, July the 22nd, 2024. Welcome to the Daily Article Podcast. I'm Chris Elkins, narrating today's article, written by Denison Forum co-founder and CEO, Dr. Jim Denison. President Joe Biden announced yesterday that he is withdrawing from the 2024 presidential race. In a subsequent post, he stated, "I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala Harris to be the nominee of our party this year." Mr. Biden's monumental decisions were made closer to November than any previous incumbent who sought re-election and then left the race. What do they say about the health and future of our democracy and our nation? On one hand, we could see these announcements as a subversion of democracy. Mr. Biden earned his party's nomination through their electoral process. Those who pressured him to step down had no formal or legal power to remove him from the ticket. We could view their actions as unfair to him, to the delegates elected to nominate him, and to the larger process. On the other hand, we could see this as democracy at work. Leaders and donors in the Democratic Party continued to make their voices and concerns heard after the primaries were over. Mr. Biden then came to his decision in the belief that it was, quote, in the best interest of my party and the country, end quote. Our founders built our nation on the declaration that all men are created equal, including presidents and political leaders. This does not mean that humans are worthy of power, but that none can be trusted with unaccountable authority. James Madison observed in Federalist number 51, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary, end quote. As Wall Street Journal columnist Peggy Noonan notes, we are living in big history. Reflect for a moment on the crises we have faced in recent years. The worst pandemic in a century, mass riots in our streets, the most acrimonious presidential election in memory, the largest European conflict since World War II, the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust, and an attempted assassination of a former and perhaps future president. Here's a sign of the times. Costco is now selling an emergency dinner kit dubbed the Apocalypse Bucket with ingredients that last 25 years. But the darker the room, the more powerful the light. The chaos of our day is God's invitation to trust and experience His providence so fully that we become catalysts for the moral and spiritual renewal our culture needs so desperately. How can we do this most effectively? Over the weekend, I spent time sitting on a bench beside a picturesque lake in our neighborhood. It's one of my favorite places in the world. However, roofers were nailing shingles on a nearby house. The sound of lawn crews and passing cars invaded the quiet. People walked or jogged on the path behind me. To experience the serenity I sought, I had to block out everything else. The key to experiencing the abundant life of Christ in a chaotic world is focusing on its source. When John met the risen Christ on Patmos from Revelation 1 verse 17, he fell at his feet as though dead and later wrote the Revelation. When Peter saw his Lord's omnipotence on display, we read in Luke 5 verse 8 that he fell down at Jesus' knees and later preached the Pentecost sermon that birthed the Christian era. When we genuinely experience Jesus, we can count on 4 results. 1, we become an example of His transforming grace. Oswald Chambers noted, the redemption means that Jesus Christ can put into any man the disposition that ruled his own life, end quote. The closer we are to Jesus, referencing Romans 8, verse 29, the more we become like Him. 2, We are used by God's Spirit to draw others to our Lord. Our bodies are the temple of the Spirit as He continues the ministry of Jesus in the world today, according to 1 Corinthians 3:16. 3. From Ephesians 4:15, we are emboldened to speak the truth in love. Paul's mandate to Titus becomes ours. Declare these things, exhort and rebuke with all authority, from Titus 2, verse 15. So we genuinely experience Jesus as we become an example of His transforming grace. We are used by God's Spirit to draw others to our Lord. We are emboldened to speak the truth in love. And 4, we are led to our greatest kingdom impact. The same Spirit who called Paul to Macedonia calls us to the people and places where He can use us most fully, as noted in Acts 16, verses 9 and 10. The historic sanctuary of First Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas, was ravaged by fire Friday night, leaving what the Dallas Morning News called a charred shell. Standing in front of the revered structure, Executive Pastor Ben Lavorne told reporters, "Our church is not a building." He was right. St. Ignatius of Antioch, known to early tradition as a disciple of John the Apostle, wrote a letter on the way to his martyrdom in Rome in which he stated, "We should really live as Christians and not merely have the name." Then he explained, "Unbelievers bear the image of this world, and those who have faith with love bear the image of God the Father through Jesus Christ." End quote. Which image will you show the world today? Thank you for listening to today's Daily Article podcast. If you would also like to read the Daily Article with its citations and references linked to their sources, find links in the episode notes to read today's article and to subscribe to the Daily Article email newsletter.